Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about Diablo 4. It's first time I make a Diablo 4 video. I've been playing basically non-stop since the game came out. And we're going to be talking, just about what I've been doing in the game, my favorite build I've been playing. I've been playing basically Minion Necromancer non-stop, almost exclusively on the hardcore variant of the game. So you'll notice that my build here is going to be a little bit more tankier than you'll see other builds. And you'll see just kind of what I've been doing, where I think minion builds are at, and I wanted to make a really just honest minion build, one that doesn't require a super amount of grinding, doesn't require any uniques, anything like that. So this is a minion build for non-grinders, I'd call it, but still super hardcore viable. You can see from the video here, I'm just basically walking forward and walking into damage. We're in level 65 zone, I'm level 62, really where this build kind of shines, like 3 levels above your level. So there's no Ring of Mundelin on this build, which is the huge minion unique. It's super rare. I mean, I've seen people not get one to like Old Lady. I've seen people on Reddit complain they're level 100 playing Necromancer and they haven't gotten one yet. So I don't think it's viable to make a build that's based around that item, especially with a new season starting soon. Just not going to have it available to you. And then I think minions overall can be a beast for leveling endgame content. Minions overall really trivialize the entire campaign. I got 1 to 50 on hardcore, never really had a problem with any bosses, just playing a generic minion build from Necromancer. And then it scales super well in endgame. It has a lot of good points in the Paragon board, which it super needs because the stats it gets from gear, unfortunately, is not great. But that being said, let's jump into the build and see where we're at. Alright, yo, what's going on, guys? Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you're watching and you get any help out of this, love for you to click the like, comment, subscribe button. Subscribe helps me a ton. I'm getting close to 500 subscribers, and it's a ton to me, so that helps you out at all. Other than that, I want to jump straight into this. We're going to talk about a generic minion build I think is perfectly capable for clearing basically any content in the game. Outside of like Uber Lilith, this will push you to high tier nightmare dungeons. It's hardcore viable. It's the build I've been playing pretty much non-stop since the game came out, or some sort of variant of this. So basically, I just want to go over in this video the skills, the skill tree, and then finally a little bit into the Paragon points. I think Paragon, the first 2 boards are all that really matters, so that's what we're going to talk about. You see this character's level 62. This is hardcore. My first character did suffer an unfortunate death. Basically got 2 dapper off screen, so we have a level 62 Necromancer, but it's basically the same build I was playing before. So let's actually do skills first. So skills are pretty simple. Raise Skeleton, of course, we're doing Warriors, Mages. Corpse Tendrils is just an all-around great ability. You'll see that basically all of my damage is coming from my minions, and we have a bunch of utility abilities outside of that. So we have Corpse Tendrils, pulls them in, gives them Vulnerable. Vulnerable is huge damage increase, so we absolutely need that. Next we have Decrepify. You'll see it's rank 4. It's actually just rank 1. I don't particularly care. We have a bunch of levels from our items, though. Decrepify is huge, slowed by 50% and deal 23% less damage. If you're playing hardcore, it's absolutely necessary. The constant slow that you get to apply, so your enemies are always CC'd, enemies are always slowed, makes the control glyph work. Tons of reasons to run Decrepify. Makes your cooldowns better when you get the modified Decrepify. We'll talk about that in a minute. Bone Storm is our ultimate ability. The actual minion ultimate is not that great. Doesn't really synergize with minions at all. So Bone Storm is actually a huge defensive ability, ends up being. So defensive for you, but then you also get that your Golem gets a Bone Storm as well. So your Golem's dealing damage with Bone Storm, so you get a little synergy there, which is great if you're doing damage with your Golem. But you also will see that we get Barrier and other great things just from using Bone Storm and our legendary items. Golem ability, of course, we're using the Bone Golem right now for Taunt. If you are feeling that you're not getting enough vulnerable from Corpse Tendrils, I'd of course use the Iron Golem with the vulnerable ability. We'll talk about those in a second. And then the last one, this is definitely a hardcore only button, but we have Blood Mist. This is our only CC break that Necromancer gets, so we're absolutely going to be using Blood Mist. If you're playing softcore, I would use like Bone Spear or Blight, or you can go the full Shadow route and do like Shadow Corpse Explosion. Absolutely fine here as well. Hardcore, I think you absolutely have to go with Blood Mist though. Alright, next we'll talk about Book of the Dead, minions that I'm using. Skeletal Warriors, we're using Reapers to summon corpses. This build does use a ton of corpses. We use corpses for Raised Skeletons for our Summon Skeleton Priest. We use it for Corpse Tendrils. Bone Storm consumes a ton of corpses to get extra time on our Bone Storm, so that just equates to extra barrier. So we are using Reapers, and they also do, I think they also do the most damage. They're every 10 seconds they do a wind up attack, and it is actually the most damage, so that's being very good. Skeletal mages were absolutely doing cold. Cold is like so good, just constantly chilling your enemies and then freezing. It is probably one of the best forms of CC in the game, to be quite honest. They constantly off-screen minions. This build is by far the best at off-screening enemies. I don't know of any other build that can actually kill things off-screen very easily. These just are always firing cold projectiles everywhere. And then you also use the gain essence with mages. This basically keeps the essence capped. Only skill I have that actually even uses essence is Decrepify, so just this alone keeps my essences up all the time. Alright, lastly we are using the Bone Golem now. Bone Golem is getting like a ton of thorns, the other one's not super great. I don't care about this corpse. If my Bone Golem's taking 20% of its life, I'm not super happy anyways, so I don't generally use this one. Then uses the taunt. Bone Golem actually does the most damage, which is why we're using this one. I think until you're using Corpse Tendrils on a regular basis, your cooldown reduction down, you can definitely use the Iron Golem with the vulnerable attack. Both this one and the Bone Golem are good options. But Bone Golem definitely does more damage, so that's why we're using it. Alright, let's talk about the skill tree really quick. It's a pretty good skill tree. You'll notice it's definitely level 50. You definitely don't want to like start with the skill tree and work with it. It's just not going to happen. Leveling up, if you're starting a brand new character, you would go Bone Splinter, and then figure out all your minion stuff. But the end game skill tree looks like this. Just 2 points anywhere, get to the next thing. We're going to use Flesh, chances to come in Corpse. And then we need one other point, so we're using Unliving Energy. If you want to use Bone Spear, you would take it here as well. Next tree, we are of course using Skeletal Warrior Mastery. It's absolutely necessary for any minion build. We're using Thorns. Thorns is actually pretty good. Thorns carries down to your minions at 30%, so it's being quite a bit of Thorns damage. Blood Mist with Fortify. I think you can use Fortify or Corpse. Fortify is a little bit more defensive, so we're using it playing on Hardcore. Then we're using the additional increased damage after you consume a corpse. We're consuming corpses basically non-stop with our Summon Skeletal Priest, so there you go. Next node, we are of course using all three of these. So this is Destined Prey is probably one of the best nodes in the game, I think. Close enemies take more damage and deal less damage to you. This is good offense and defense balance. Best reach, distant enemies. Your mages deal a ton of damage to distant enemies. This is definitely worth it. Skeletal Mage Mastery, absolutely, of course, necessary. Decrepify with Enhanced Decrepify, and then we go for the Lucky Hit. Chance to activate cooldowns is super helpful, keeping Bone Storm and Corpse Tendrils up more often. So that, and then amplifying damage. We're basically cursing everything all the time, so this is very nice. This is basically just increased damage all the time. Next node, we're using Corpse Tendrils. There's only one way to do this. You do Corpse Tendrils with the vulnerable damage. Make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. Absolutely great. And then we are using Necrotic Carapace, which basically gives us Fortify all the time. When corpses are formed by your skills or your minions, so my little skeletal warriors are summoning corpses all the time and basically fully fortified all the time. It's fantastic. The ultimate node, we are taking Bone Storm Headset and fully enhanced. Basically all but one of the minion nodes, so you can use one off here, one off here. These two, Death Defense and Hellbent Commander, absolutely have to be fully maxed. And then one of these take a point away. I take the point away from the healing, just because it doesn't really seem to affect anything. And Golem Mastery, of course, as well. Lastly, we're using Kalen's Edict. This build actually scales at minion attack speed, so you'll see that in a second with how we set up our legendaries. I also think it's perfectly acceptable to go with Shadow Blight. You'd usually do a little bit of different legendary abilities in kind of on your own, but it's pretty self-explanatory what Shadow Blight does. There is a version of this building you can go full Shadow minions as well. It seems like it's a bit more to set up, and you end up just like getting clogged on legendary spaces. So I went with this build instead. Much simpler. You get a ton of attack speed, and it's crazy how good this scales. So we'll go take a look at that now when we look at our legendary abilities. So this is where I got set up. I always like to start off with what I think the most important legendary ability is, and that is of course on my two-handed weapon. If it's on my two-handed weapon, I get double. So this is actually the attack speed, the minion attack speed legendary ability. This is basically up all the time, so your minions just have 66% increased attack speed almost all the time. This is absolutely insane. You think about how this works. Your skeletal mages are dealing cold damage. They're just constantly chilling. You'd way rather have attack speed than minion damage, and this is like just constantly chilling and freezing. This is so good. Other thing I want to point out here is that this build uses legendary two-handed scythe. You'll see Ring of Mendelin builds always use wand and a focus. Do not get trapped into using a wand and a focus. If you are not using Ring of Mendelin, you should absolutely use two-handed scythe. It has more damage. So if you're not going for specifically lucky hit and CDR, which is basically just be a Ring of Mendelin build for minions, you should definitely be using two-handed and then switch to wand and focus when you actually have the ring. So I throw it out there. The other thing for me is I'm using skeletal mages on my amulet for an extra skeletal mage. It seems pretty good. Skeletal mage is definitely our biggest source of damage, that and the golem. So just having one more skeletal mage is usually have 5, go to 6, that's a 20% damage increase. 20% more damage, it's just super good. Alright. Other abilities I want to talk about. So the helmet, we have the bubble when you are not healthy. This is super good. It's not necessary. It's definitely a hardcore thing. So we use the helmet with the bubble basically as a reminder, like, hey, you're taking damage, do something about it. That's usually my trigger in my mind to remember to hit blood mist and get away. On our chest piece, we're using the armor, of course. This is the lower rolled, just basic legendary imprint. Obviously you want the best one, but just armor is good, so we have it. Minions cast Blizzard. Blizzard is really good. This is one of the best ways to do AoE with your mages. Otherwise, they're like not super good at AoE, but they're very good single target, even without this. So that. Next on the pants, we have another defensive. This is the Bone Storm grants barrier. As long as Bone Storm is up, we basically have barrier all the time, 100% barrier. So it is extremely good. On our boots, we have Skeletal Warriors increased by 2. That. And then our last two, we will have Bone Storm has a Darkness ability. And I know like this doesn't seem great, but it actually really is. Basically, this Bone Storm put a dot on all the enemies. So it makes Bone Storm last essentially 2 seconds longer, so you get barrier for 2 seconds more. And then it also makes it tick more often, so you're getting the armor from this legendary more often. It's just like great synergy with this and the other abilities for Bone Storm and armor here. Lastly, we're making Bone Storm last longer by consuming corpses. Pretty simple, self-explanatory. We're making a bunch of corpses. This is basically hitting all the time, so we're getting like a full extra 5 seconds, but fully rolled to be an extra 8 seconds of Bone Storm all the time. This basically makes Bone Storm on cooldown. So, that being said, if I was going to change anything for softcore, I would move the Blizzard to the helmet, not use this imprint, and I would use the Corpse Tendrils. When you cast Corpse Tendrils, it's this one. When you use Corpse Tendrils, you get increased crit chance and increased critical strike damage. Seems absolutely great. So we're just constantly casting Corpse Tendril all the time, is just more damage. Alright, last thing I want to look at before we wrap it up here is our Paragon board. Paragon board's like super self-explanatory. You'll see I only have 2 because we're only level 62, but this is my second time doing this character. It basically did the same thing. So you just go straight up. I'm not going to go over this super in depth. Grab all the points. I'm using mages. Control is also good. Mage and control are really good. Dead Rays are really good. Your first board absolutely has to be Cult Leader. This is probably the best legendary node for minions easily. Just 45% increased damage. So absolutely necessary. 20% damage, 5% attack speed, also amazing. Just some super amazing nodes in here. Then you get up here and you get like 2 rare nodes right next to each other with like really good magic nodes around it. Just a bunch of generically good minion stuff. The next next board you would take is Hulking Monstrosity. This is where your golem really starts to pop off, and you'll notice like a huge increase in your golem damage. I think this is especially where you want to switch from iron to bone, because now the damage increase is like getting scaled up as well as like just naturally being bigger, and it's a super good way to get more damage out of this build. Your Golem also gets all these like other rare nodes around here, basically becoming like a uber tank, super impossible to kill. You may notice that if you get into like really difficult situations before having this board, that your Golem dies sometimes. Doesn't happen once you have this. Golem attack speed, Golem damage, just absolutely insane. After those two boards, basically up to you. There's a couple decent minion boards, but you're talking you're like level 80, 90 at that point, and I hope you have an understanding of the build and know where to go from there. So that is that. And that's where we're going to wrap it up. So that's my minion build. This is my generic level 1 to level until I drop a Ring Mundell on minion build. And if you never drop a Ring Mundell, this build will take you to level 100. It's super tanky. I'm playing in hardcore, absolutely no problems. So that's my build. And thank you for watching. Remember to click like, subscribe, comment down below. It means a ton to me. And check out my Twitch link down below. We'll be streaming Season 1, dropping on the 20th. Thanks all.